They believed she didn't fit in, scrutinizing her every step, lodging complaints, and eventually dialing the police. Unbeknownst to them, the woman they singled out was the head of the entire sheriff's department. Picture purchasing the house you've toiled your whole life for, turning the key, anticipating tranquility, only to discover the welcome mat was never laid out for you. That was the reality for Sheridan Cole, a 44-year-old who had dedicated over 2 decades to her county. She wasn't merely a professional, she was the elected sheriff of the county, admired by peers and dreaded by lawbreakers. Yet, to the residents of Maple Glen Drive and Brookhaven Estates, Florida, none of that held weight the moment she drove her moving truck into her new driveway. The sun scorched that Saturday morning, the air wavering above the asphalt as Sheridan stepped out in jeans and a t-shirt, hair pulled back, sleeves pushed up. She gazed at the modest 2-story brick house with its tidy lawn and a towering oak shading one corner. It was precisely what she'd dreamed of, quiet, cozy, a place to unwind after years of pursuing warrants, late-night operations, and courtroom battles. As she hauled boxes from the truck, she caught blinds shifting, eyes were watching. Across the street, a man watering his grass paused, hose dripping, staring too long to be courteous. Next door, a woman leaned on her porch railing, phone pressed to her ear, whispering while never breaking her gaze on Sheridan. Sheridan sensed it, eyes trailing her every move. "Guess I'll meet them later," she murmured, adjusting the box's weight. She wasn't oblivious, she'd seen those looks before, when she entered certain diners in uniform, or answered calls in areas where her authority was silently doubted before she spoke. But she told herself this was different, this was her home now. By midday, the truck was empty, and Sheridan sat on its tailgate, sipping water, sweat trickling down her face. She felt a quiet pride, she'd done most of the heavy lifting herself. That was her way, no cutting corners, no excuses. Glancing around, she noticed most neighbors had retreated indoors, though blinds still twitched when she looked up. The first to approach was an older man walking his dog, slowing as he tugged the leash. "You moving in?" he asked, his tone flat. "Yes, sir," Sheridan replied, standing with a polite smile. "Sheridan Cole, just got the keys this week." He gave a curt nod, muttered, "Welcome," and kept walking. Sheridan exhaled, watching him vanish down the street. That afternoon, a white SUV pulled up. Out stepped Clifford Branson, late 50s, silver hair neatly combed, golf shirt tucked tightly into khakis. His handshake was firm, but his eyes stayed cold. "I'm Clifford," he declared, HOA president. "Just checking you have what you need." "Appreciate it," Sheridan said evenly, still settling, "but I'll manage." Clifford's gaze swept her yard, the driveway, the recycling bin by the curb. "We keep things orderly here. Bins out no earlier than 6 p.m. before pickup, lawns mowed weekly, that sort of thing." Sheridan caught the undertone, it wasn't a greeting, it was a warning. "Got it," she replied. He flashed a tight smile, patted her car's hood like it was his, and left without another word. Sheridan stood, arms crossed, feeling the weight of the exchange. She'd dealt with men like him before, soft-spoken but wielding rules like knives. That night, unpacking in her living room, Sheridan thought of her new neighbors. She wanted to believe things would ease once they saw she was just another homeowner, paying her dues like them. But deep down, she knew the stares and curt exchanges weren't mere curiosity. She pulled back the curtain, eyeing the street of uniform houses, neat hedges, and parked SUVs. Across the way, the same woman from earlier stood on her porch, still staring. Sheridan let the curtain drop. "Some people don't need a reason," she whispered. "They'll make one up." She switched off the light, hoping tomorrow would be better, but the truth was, tomorrow would only widen the cracks in her new life's foundation. The next morning, Sheridan woke early, her law enforcement years wiring her to rise before dawn. She brewed coffee, stepped onto her porch, and let the cool air brush her face. For a moment, she wondered if she'd overreacted, maybe the stares were just new neighbor curiosity. But then she saw the dog-walking man again, crossing the street slower, glancing at her house before looking away. A silver sedan cruised by, its driver slowing excessively, peering through the window. Sheridan raised her coffee mug in a small gesture, but the car sped off. Inside, she set her mug down and muttered, "Still a spectacle." By 7, she was in uniform, ready for the sheriff's office. Her badge gleamed as she pinned it, a ritual that usually steadied her. But today, As she adjusted her belt, she wondered what her neighbors would think seeing her leave in uniform. She grabbed her keys and stepped out. Sure enough, two women by a mailbox across the street fell silent, their eyes tracking her until she drove away. Later, when she returned, the phone-wielding neighbor was trimming hedges. "Afternoon," Sheridan called. The woman paused, clippers midair, gave a tight and kept cutting. Sheridan lingered a moment before heading inside. She'd read enough body language in interrogations to know a brush-off. That evening, as the sun sank, Sheridan sat at her dining table amid half-unpacked boxes. Voices drifted through her open window, neighbors chatting, loud enough to carry. "I don't know, she's always gone before dawn, back late. What does she do? Could be anything. Those hours aren't normal unless something's off." Sheridan shut the window, jaw tight. She'd heard worse in her career, but hearing it outside her home stung differently. She wanted to march out, declare herself Sheriff Sheridan Cole, but held back. She owed no one an explanation for her life. 2 days later, unloading groceries, a teen from down the street stopped. "Renting or buying?" he asked bluntly. "Buying," Sheridan answered. He nodded, like he'd collected intel, then jogged off to friends at the corner. Sheridan shook her head. Word travels fast here. The tension grew sharper. No one brought a pie, no welcome cards, not even the shallow gestures of suburbia. Instead, she got sidelong glances, hushed conversations, and the constant sense of being watched. One night, a squad car rolled past her house as she took out the trash. The officer spotted her, hesitated, then waved quickly before driving off. Sheridan frowned. There was no reason for a patrol here. She knew her deputy's routes. Inside, she tapped her fingers on the counter. Something was brewing. She'd seen this pattern before, gossip turning to suspicion, suspicion to complaints, complaints to worse. Why does home feel like work? She asked herself. For years, she'd borne the weight of resolving disputes, solving crimes, standing tall under scrutiny. All she wanted now was to be plain Sheridan. But her neighbors weren't allowing that. Small signs piled up, cars lingering near her driveway, two unfamiliar men pointing at her house before walking off, her recycling bin slightly askew, like someone had peeked inside. By week's end, Sheridan sat in her living room, uniform draped over a chair, and whispered, "They want a story about me, they'll invent one." She wasn't scared. She'd faced worse in alleys, motels, courtrooms, but this felt personal. This wasn't a case she could leave behind. This was her sanctuary, eroding bit by bit. Yet the neighbors weren't finished. The whispers were about to reach the HOA president, and once Clifford Branson got involved, things would shift from quiet distrust to deliberate action. Clifford prided himself on keeping Brookhaven estates orderly, measuring lawn stripes like a drill sergeant, scheduling fertilizer reminders, believing control equaled respectability. To him, rules weren't suggestions, they were the community's shield. When the first email about Sheridan hit his inbox, he didn't think much of it. It was brief, woman at 1432 Maple Glen, odd hours, unsure what she's up to. Might need watching. Clifford leaned back, rereading the words. He'd heard of Sheridan's arrival. New faces were rare in Brookhaven. The HOA liked knowing who moved in, their jobs, cars, yard upkeep. But what unsettled him wasn't Sheridan, it was the email's tone, not just curious but wary. By the next week, 2 more complaints arrived. One claimed Sheridan's car faced the wrong way overnight. Another noted too many packages at her door. Clifford knew these weren't major infractions, but he filed them. Paper trails mattered. At the monthly HOA meeting, he tapped the emails on the table as 6 board members sipped coffee. "We've had notes about 1432 Maple Glen," he began, scanning for reactions. Patricia Nolan, HOA treasurer, pursed her lips. "That's the one leaving before dawn, right?" "I've noticed, always gone early, back late." Ronald Pierce shook his head. "Probably just works long hours." "Why's that our business?" Patricia's voice sharpened. "Ronald, people are worried. Kids play outside. Strangers coming and going at odd times, it unsettles folks." Clifford added, "She lives alone. No family, no kids, no spouse. Just her." A murmur spread. In Brookhaven, that stood out. People liked tidy categories, families, retirees. A single woman didn't fit. Ronald raised a hand. What rule has she broken? Patricia leaned forward. Rules aren't the point, perception is. When neighbors feel uneasy, it's our job to act. Clifford nodded. He didn't need much convincing. He'd built a career on addressing concerns, even if they were just gossip and polite rapping. We'll monitor, he said. Document anything odd. If it persists, we'll decide next steps. After the meeting, Clifford drove past Sheridan's house. Her lights were on, shades drawn, car in the driveway, dust on the tires from a long day. He slowed, inspecting like a detective. Nothing amiss, yet the complaints weighed on him. The next morning, another email from Patricia, saw her again, 5 a.m., leaving. No normal job has those hours. People are talking. Clifford rubbed his temple. He told himself this was due diligence, not prejudice. But deep down, he knew Sheridan's presence stirred unease that had little to do with rules. Days later, Sheridan saw Clifford and Patricia across the street, clipboard in hand, pointing at her driveway, scribbling, whispering. She leaned against her car, arms crossed, watching until they noticed. They didn't wave, just walked away. That night, Sheridan vented to her deputy, Rafael Ortiz. They're circling me like I'm a suspect, she said. Want me to visit, drop a hint? Rafael half-joked. No, that's what they'd expect, me flashing my badge. I just wanted a house, Raf, a place to drink coffee without someone timing my steps. Rafael paused. Sure, people like that don't need reasons. They'll make them up. Sheridan sighed, knowing he was right. She hoped Clifford's clipboard stayed just that, a clipboard, not a weapon. But Clifford wasn't done. The whispers were about to push him into a call that would turn suspicion into confrontation. By the second week, Sheridan had almost grown used to the stares, almost. She told herself not to take it personally, but it grated every time she left before dawn, catching the glow of a neighbor's window, or returned to garage lights flicking on like alarms. So when an envelope appeared taped to her door one Thursday evening, she had a hunch what it was. She peeled it open, notice of violation, trash receptacles may not remain in public view outside collection hours. Ensure compliance. Sheridan stared, lips parting. Her bin had been out less than an hour post-pickup, a trivial oversight, hardly worth a notice. She tossed the paper on the counter. Guess the welcome basket's not coming, she muttered. Later, she called her sister, Gwendolyn Tate, in Jacksonville for blunt advice. A violation for trash cans. Gwen laughed bitterly. Sherry, that's not about trash, it's about you. Sheridan leaned back, phone to her ear. I know, but the way they did it, no knock, no talk, just a note slapped on my door like I'm guilty. You think Clifford sent it himself? Has to be. He's the one who stopped by day one with his rulebook. Gwen paused. Don't let them push you. You fought worse than this. Yeah, Sheridan admitted, but I can't arrest neighbors for dirty looks. The next morning, Sheridan spotted Clifford near her yard as she loaded her car. She confronted him. Mr. Branson, she called. He turned, flashing a polite smile. Miss Cole, everything okay? Got your notice, she said. Clifford adjusted his glasses, feigning surprise. Oh, those are standard, nothing personal, just keeping things uniform. Sheridan tilted her head. You mean my house was the only one with a bin out after pickup? Clifford cleared his throat. Well, yours was most noticeable. She stepped closer, tone sharp but calm. Mr. Branson, I've enforced laws for 20 years. I know a rule from a target. Which is this? For a moment, Clifford's mask slipped, but he recovered. Just the rules, Miss Cole. He tapped his clipboard and walked off. Sheridan watched, shoulders tense. That weekend, another envelope arrived, claiming her car tires grazed the grass, violating property standards. Sheridan laughed, humorless. By Monday, whispers grew louder. Unloading groceries, she overheard Patricia Nolan in her driveway. I told Clifford we can't ignore it. She comes and goes at all hours, doesn't even try to blend in. Another neighbor replied, maybe she's renting, doesn't care. Sheridan slammed her trunk, making them jump, and walked inside without a word. That night, Raphael called. "Sure, I'm hearing things." "What kind?" "Word around the HOA, calls about you, some vague, some saying you're hiding something." Sheridan exhaled. "Hiding what?" "A badge, a mortgage, and a sore back from moving." "What more do they want?" "Doesn't matter," Raphael said. "Once they decide you don't belong, they twist facts to fit." Sheridan rubbed her forehead, staying silent. The next day, another notice arrived, lights left on too late. She crumpled it in her fist. It wasn't about violations, it was about building a case. Clifford was stacking complaints, waiting to escalate. But Sheridan didn't yet know how far he'd go, or how soon Whispers would bring squad cars to her door. The fourth notice landed in her mailbox Tuesday morning, Clifford's stamped signature at the bottom. It claimed her mailbox needed repainting to meet standards. Sheridan stared until her coffee cooled. The mailbox was 6 months old, black enamel gleaming. She checked it outside, spotless. She knew then the harassment wasn't even pretending to be subtle. That evening, she parked her cruiser in the driveway, red and blue dash lights reflecting off the garage as she turned them off. She wanted the neighborhood to see who they were targeting. Hours later, Clifford's phone buzzed with Patricia's call. "Cliff, she brought a squad car into the neighborhood," she hissed. "Think that's appropriate?" "People are nervous." Clifford sipped bourbon in his recliner. "It's her work vehicle," he said cautiously, "but it sends a message." By week's end, 3 more calls came. One neighbor claimed strangers visited Sheridan's house, just Raphael with takeout. Another said her porch light was too bright. Patricia insisted Sheridan's glares created a hostile atmosphere. Clifford filed the complaints in a manila folder, uneasy but satisfied. Documentation was his strength, order, structure. Yet a voice inside warned he was being used, that this wasn't about rules but resentment. Still, he pressed on. Friday evening, Sheridan caught Clifford across the street, phone in hand. She'd had enough. "Mr. Branson," she called, crossing her lawn, "you got a problem with me?" He lowered his phone. "Not at all, Miss Cole, just doing my HOA duty." "Funny," she shot back, "your duty seems to focus on my house." Clifford's smile was thin. "We hold everyone to the same standard." Sheridan stepped closer, voice calm but piercing. "I've lived a life under scrutiny. I've walked into rooms where people judged me before I spoke. But I don't expect that at home. So if you've got something to say it to my face, not through notes on my door." Clifford's throat bobbed, but he said nothing, just turned, tapping his phone, and left. Inside, Sheridan paced her kitchen. The notices weren't about bins or lights, they were groundwork. She knew it. 2 nights later, at the HOA clubhouse, Clifford spread Sheridan's file before the board. Patricia sat eagerly beside him, others looked uneasy. "We have a pattern," Clifford said, sliding papers. "Odd hours, repeated violations, confrontational attitude. Residents feel unsafe." Ronald Pierce frowned. "Unsafe? She hasn't done anything threatening." "You're stretching, Cliff." Patricia cut in. "Ronald, you didn't see her storm across her lawn. She's got a temper, and that police car, it's intimidating." Marjorie Hill crossed her arms. "Or maybe she's just a cop." Clifford raised a hand. "Perception matters as much as reality. If residents are alarmed, we can't ignore it." Patricia leaned in, voice low. "Cliff, if you don't act, someone else will. If we lose the community's trust, it's on you." Clifford's jaw tightened. He'd built his image as the problem solver. Doing nothing wasn't an option. That night, idling outside Sheridan's house, he dialed non-emergency dispatch. "I'd like to report suspicious activity," he said carefully, giving her address. His stomach twisted, but he didn't stop, convincing himself he was protecting order. Inside, Sheridan worked on reports, her porch light glowing, cruiser in the driveway. She didn't know that in less than an hour, squad cars would arrive, not for a crime, but for her. But when those lights flooded Brookhaven Estates, her neighbors would learn she wasn't just a target, she was the sheriff. The first sign was red and blue flashing off her windows. Sheridan looked up from her reports, pen in hand, thinking it was a passing patrol. But the light stopped. Then another set appeared, and another, until her street glowed. She stood, chair scraping, and peered out. 3 squad cars lined her curb, doors opening, radios crackling, officers stepping out, hands on holsters. "You've got to be kidding," she muttered. She unlocked her door and stepped onto the porch. The officers froze. Deputy Lauren McKinney squinted. "Sheriff," she called, disbelief thick. Sheridan crossed her arms. "Evening, Deputy. Care to explain why half the precinct's in my driveway?" A young officer, nervous, stepped forward. "We got a call about suspicious activity here. Dispatch mentioned odd hours, possible traffic, that kind of thing." Sheridan raised an eyebrow. "Criminal behavior at my house?" "Yes, ma'am," he stammered. "Just the address, no name." McKinney cleared her throat. "Sheriff Cole lives here," she told him firmly. The words hung in the humid night. Neighbors watched from windows. Patricia stood boldly on her porch, phone in hand, like she was watching a show. Sheridan stepped onto her lawn, badge glinting. "I'll say this once," she said, voice carrying. "Next time you get a call about this address, check who lives here before sending the department to embarrass yourselves." The young officer swallowed. "Yes, Sheriff." She turned, eyes locking on Clifford, now at his mailbox, feigning innocence. "And tell dispatch," she added, "these calls aren't about crime, they're about neighbors who can't mind their own business." McKinney nodded. "Understood, Sheriff." The deputies retreated, faces flushed, engines rumbling as the lights faded. The street darkened, but every eye stayed on Sheridan. She stood, arms crossed, letting the silence speak. Patricia muttered into her phone and slipped inside. Clifford retreated, shoulders hunched. Sheridan exhaled, returning to her porch. Raphael called instantly. "Sure, dispatch sent cars to your house." "You okay?" "I'm fine," she said, voice steely, "but my neighbors just made a mistake they won't forget. They called cops to my house, Raph." "My house?" Raphael cursed. "Want me to come over?" "No, I handled it." "But tomorrow, I'm filing a report. I want this nonsense documented." She hung, adrenaline surging. She'd faced worse, but this betrayal, from her own community, cut deep. Sheridan poured water, hand steady despite the fire in her chest. She knew the HOA would scramble, some neighbors would apologize, others would dig in. But they'd crossed a line. The fallout was just beginning, and it would split Brookhaven estates wide open. The morning after, the neighborhood felt different. People weren't just glancing, they were staring. Sheridan sensed it as she grabbed her mail. Whispers followed like shadows. By afternoon, her phone pinged, HOA special meeting, mandatory attendance. The subject screamed urgency. She opened it, the board called an evening meeting to address recent events. Sheridan smirked. "They want a show. I'll give them one." The clubhouse buzzed when she arrived, chairs filled, neighbors leaning forward. Clifford stood at the podium, clipboard like a shield, Patricia smug beside him. Sheridan entered in full uniform, boots echoing as she took a front row seat. Clifford cleared his throat. "Thank you for coming. We've had troubling events." Residents expressed concerns about irregular activity at one residence. Last night, law enforcement was dispatched for the community's good. "We need to discuss next steps." Patricia leaned into her mic. "We can't let our neighborhood become a spectacle. Safety first." A voice from the back shouted, "What spectacle?" Cops showed up to the sheriff's house. Murmurs spread. Sheridan stood, uniform commanding silence. "That's right," she said, voice firm. "Sheriff Sheridan Cole, Seminole County. The woman you called the police on." Gasps erupted. Clifford paled, Patricia's jaw dropped. Sheridan stepped closer. "Do you know how humiliating it was for my deputies to be sent to their boss's house on a false call? Do you know what that says about this neighborhood?" Clifford tried to speak. "Miss Cole, please, Sheriff Cole," she corrected sharply. "Those calls weren't about safety. They were about bias. I leave early because crime doesn't sleep. I come home late because I'm in courtrooms, fighting for justice. But instead of welcoming me, you whispered, watched, and targeted me in my own home. The room tensed, eyes locked on her. Patricia found her voice. We were protecting the community. From what? Sheridan's voice rose. From me? I've protected this county for 22 years, yet I'm standing here because you called the cops on me for not fitting your idea of normal. Ronald Pierce spoke up. She's right. This has gone too far. If we're calling police on our sheriff, the problem's us. Agreement murmured through some, others shifted uncomfortably. Clifford's grip on his clipboard tightened. Sheridan softened her tone. I didn't move here to flash a badge. I wanted peace, like you. But last night showed how fast assumptions escalate when no one sees the full picture. You don't have to like me, but you will respect that I live here. I won't be treated like a criminal in my own home. Silence fell. Clifford muttered, we'll reconsider the matter. Sheridan leaned forward, eyes on him. Do that. Because next time, it's not just embarrassment, it's a lawsuit. She turned, uniform gleaming, and walked out, the clubhouse doors thudding shut. Neighbors sat stunned, some whispering apologies, others avoiding eyes. Patricia hissed to Clifford, but he stayed silent. Outside, Sheridan exhaled, anger and relief. Mixing. She'd revealed herself, and there was no going back. The fallout had begun, and Brookhaven Estates would never be the same. For days, the neighborhood held its breath. Some neighbors nodded stiffly when Sheridan passed, others turned away. The fracture was clear. Saturday morning, grabbing her newspaper, Sheridan overheard Patricia across the street with two residents. She embarrassed the board, Patricia said sharply, marching in uniform, acting above the rules. A man replied, above the rules. She's the sheriff. You want to fight law enforcement. Patricia bristled. It's about fairness. If we let her slide, what message does that send? The other neighbor shook his head. Clifford called cops on the sheriff. That's not standards, that's foolish. Sheridan let them argue, their division proof of the wound's depth. At the next HOA meeting, Ronald took charge. Sheriff Cole hasn't broken laws or bylaws, he said firmly. This isn't a witch hunt. Patricia snapped, so we ignore complaints. Pretend people aren't uncomfortable. Marjorie Hill slammed the table. Uncomfortable because she works late. You and Clifford stirred this, and now we're all paying. Voices erupted, some defending Sheridan, others backing the HOA. Clifford sat silent, his authority slipping. Sheridan listened, waiting. When the noise died, she stood. I didn't ask for this, she said calmly. I came here to live like you, walk my dog, take out trash, sleep without my phone ringing. But I've been watched, reported, treated like a stranger on my own porch. She paused. You say you want safety. So do I, it's my job. But safety comes from trust, not suspicion. Right now, this neighborhood lacks it. A few clapped, others sat stone-faced. Patricia glared, Clifford stared at his clipboard. After, a couple, Harold and Denise Gardner, approached Sheridan. We're sorry. Denise said. We should have welcomed you. We didn't. Harold added, not everyone's with Clifford and Patricia. Some of us are glad you're here. Sheridan smiled tiredly. That means something. But not all were swayed. Clifford stared from his porch that evening, expression unreadable. Patricia paraded her disdain, ignoring Sheridan. The neighborhood split, some respected her, others resented her more. The HOA, once about lawn care, was now a battleground of pride and prejudice. One evening, Sheridan sat on her porch, watching kids bike by. For a moment, she felt the peace she'd craved. But she knew it was fragile, Clifford and Patricia wouldn't let go. She wasn't one to sit idle forever. The time was coming to face the neighborhood head-on, not just as a resident, but as their sheriff. Sheridan had been patient, enduring violations, stares, and hoping the police call's embarrassment would shift things. But weeks later, the hostility lingered. Clifford avoided her, Patricia fueled gossip. One evening, after another tense mailbox encounter with Patricia, Sheridan decided she was done. She called Raphael. I'm tired of waiting, she said. If I let this slide, they'll keep coming. What's the plan? Raphael asked. A meeting, not an HOA ambush. My terms. That Friday, Sheridan booked the clubhouse, printing flyers, community forum, hosted by Sheriff Sheridan Cole, Saturday, 7 p.m. No HOA stamp, just her name. By Saturday, curiosity won. The clubhouse filled, neighbors uneasy. Clifford and Patricia sat in back, stiff. Sheridan entered in jeans and a button-down, no badge, no gun, wanting to be seen as a neighbor. The room hushed. Thank you for coming, she began, voice steady. I didn't move here for enemies. I wanted peace. But I've met suspicion, notices, and police at my door. Let's not pretend why. It wasn't about trash cans or lights. It was about me, what you assumed, what you whispered, without asking who I am. Neighbors shifted. One woman raised a hand. I didn't know you were the sheriff. People were saying things. Sheridan nodded. That's the issue, people said things, and no one checked if they were true. You called police on me, not knowing I'm the one keeping this county safe. Imagine if I wasn't me, if the wrong deputy came, or if I'd stepped out angry instead of calm. The room stilled. Patricia scoffed, you're playing victim. We wanted safety. Sheridan locked eyes. Safe from what, Patricia? From a woman working. From a sheriff with 22 years' service. Patricia faltered. Clifford avoided her gaze. Sheridan softened. I know change unsettles. I know some didn't expect someone like me here. But I'm here, and I'm staying. You can see me as a problem or as a neighbor who wants safety, peace, respect. Harold Gardner stood. She's right. We've acted on fear, not facts. I'm ashamed I didn't speak sooner. Murmurs of agreement rose. Sheridan closed. I'll keep serving this county, it's my oath. But here, I want to live. That choice is yours. Some shook her hand after, apologizing, others left quietly. Patricia stormed out. Clifford lingered, then approached. You've made your point, he said quietly, but this doesn't end overnight. I don't need overnight, Sheridan replied. I need it to end. Back home, she sat on her porch, watching the sunset. For the first time, she felt the ground shift her way. Some would never accept her, but others had begun to. It was enough to keep her strong. Acceptance was fragile, but the neighborhood was starting to face its mistakes. The next week, Brookhaven Estates looked unchanged, neat lawns, sprinklers, SUVs. But Sheridan felt the shift. Some waved, awkward but real, others kept distance, their stares less bold. Thursday, she walked the block, passing kids on sidewalks, teens tossing footballs, couples gardening. It should have felt normal, but every glance carried the memory of lights, whispers. Confrontation. At the park bench, Harold and Denise joined her. We've thought about what you said, Denise began. About trust. We let gossip outweigh truth. We owe you better. Sheridan smiled. Apologies start, but change means questioning assumptions, letting people in, not shutting them out. Harold nodded. Patricia and Clifford won't admit it, but they don't speak for us all. A kid ran by, stopped, and looked at Sheridan. You're the sheriff, right? That's me, she said. He grinned. Cool, then sprinted off. Sheridan chuckled. Simple recognition meant much. She stood. This isn't just about me. It's about how fast suspicion grows when we assume the worst, forgetting the person we're whispering about has a story. That weekend, at the HOA meeting, Sheridan spoke again, in a blue blouse, no uniform. I thought I was buying peace, she said. I got a lesson, community is fragile. Rumors, glances, silence can break trust. But trust can rebuild if we face our mistakes. She paused. You don't need to like me, but respect me and anyone who calls this home, no matter who they are. If you can't, no bylaws will make this place safe. Some clapped. Clifford's jaw tightened. Patricia glared. Sheridan finished. We all want security, peace, home. Don't let fear drown fairness. That night, on her porch, cicadas humming, Sheridan reflected. The irony, a sheriff treated as a suspect, taught her authority doesn't shield prejudice. Change starts with conversation, not laws. She raised her glass to the quiet street. Homes worth fighting for, she whispered. Her story in Brookhaven Estates left a truth: assumptions destroy, understanding builds. If this resonates, think of your community. Respect isn't optional, it's the foundation. And if stories like this matter,